I unwrapped the cursed love letters on Valentine's Day and faced a terrifying curse. I never should have opened that door. The moment my fingers peeled away the yellowing paper, a chill ran down my spine. It was like tearing open a wound that should have stayed silent. I was just sitting at my small kitchen table, the dim light flickering above me, surrounded by the usual chaos of bills and empty coffee cups. Valentine's Day was always just another day for me, a day of overpriced flowers and overly sweet chocolates that I avoided like the plague. But that day felt heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. As I unfolded the letters, the scent of musk and something lingering, almost decayed, filled the room. The ink was inked with shades of deep crimson, crawling with desperate tales of love turned sour, of heartbreak that literally whispered in the shadows. I could feel the cool breeze from the cracked window, but the layer of dread settled into my stomach, making it hard to breathe. My hands trembled as I deciphered the documents, words distorting into something sinister. The candlelight cast long, flickering shadows that felt alive, creeping up the walls like fingers reaching for me. Then, thumps echoed from the hallway, punctuating the silence. My heart raced. Was someone there? My breath hitched. A rustle echoed in the corner, a movement I couldn't quite see. The shadows danced, dark against the pale walls, as if mocking my fear. I swallowed hard, wanting to call out, but all that came out was a whisper of my own name, as if my voice was stolen by the very air I breathed. With every letter I read, the feeling of dread deepened. They spoke of curses, of doomed romances, and lovers that met terrible fates. I thought it was nothing more than a clever ruse. But a jagged crackle pierced the air, like the sound of ice breaking beneath my feet. My heart hammered. Something was wrong. The door at the end of the hall creaked as if something pushed against it. The temperature in the room dropped, my breath visible in front of me, like a fog heralding death. I wanted to run, but my feet were glued to the floor. I glanced back at the letters, the ink seemed to pulsate, alive with malevolence. I felt a presence, cold and alarming, crawl up my neck. It was then that I saw him, a figure, shadowed and monstrous, standing beneath the flickering light. My heart stopped. Then, a scream shattered the silence. Was it mine? Or had those cursed words finally taken a life? The door slammed shut, the sound echoing with the force of a gunshot. My world tilted. I stood frozen, trapped between reality and horror, wondering what would come next. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence hung heavier than a shroud, smothering the space around me. Frozen to the spot, my mind raced to piece together the fragments of horror unfolding before me. The figure lingered in the flickering light, shifting just beyond the threshold of recognition, as if teasingly aware of my paralyzed state. My breath quickened, I willed myself to move, to scream, but the chill in the air seemed to weave around my throat, tightening like a noose. The letters lay in disarray, dimming with a sinister glow, whispering secrets that clawed at the edges of my sanity. I could almost hear their anguished cries, entreating me to understand the fate that awaited those who dared unseal their words. But the figure, it was not just a figment of my imagination, it was a manifestation of the darkness spilled on those pages. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows that morphed into anguished faces. The air crackled with charged energy, and I felt it pierce the pit of my stomach. "Get out!" a voice hissed from behind me, an otherworldly whisper that curled around my skin like icy tendrils. I turned my head, and what I saw first filled me with paralyzing fear, my own face leering back at me from the wall, eyes hollow and mouth stretched in a horrible glee. No, no. I gasped, stepping back, each movement setting off a reaction in the surreal horror encasing me. The floorboards creaked beneath the weight of something unseen, groaning as if they had been teetering on the edge of collapse. Then the door's grip upon the walls loosened, slowly creaking open with a sound like bones snapping. The air slipped through like cold fingers inviting me to step into the unknown. Something ancient and malicious stirred, urging me forward, even as my instinct screamed for me to flee, but the letters they had imbued me with a curse far worse than physical danger. A compulsion to witness the ruin they wrought seized my senses, shackling me to that cursed moment. Beyond the door, veils of darkness pulsated, beckoning with promises of truths too horrifying to bear. Shadows flickered and writhed like serpents, whispering tantalizing words that echoed my own unfulfilled desires, twisting them into something monstrous. With an agonizing effort, I tore my gaze from the abyss and turned back to the table, desperate for clarity. But the letters were now eerily blank, all the horror that had spilled from their words receding into an inky void. I ran trembling fingers over the surface, desperately searching for some clue, something to anchor me in reality. The figure behind me hadn't moved but felt closer, an oppressive weight hovering, watching. I could feel its pitiless gaze, an accusing stare that passed through my soul like a blade. Whispers filled my ears, snatches of pain, deceit, and loss emanating from the walls like trapped spirits, begging for release. Instinctively, I wanted to cover my ears, but it only amplified the noise, tossing my mind into chaos. Love is a curse, the figure finally spoke, each word laced with malice. Those letters aren't just letters, they are the key to their desires. They are death incarnate, and you invited them in. Get out. I shouted, the words breaking through the fog of fear. But the moment I spoke, the ground started to tremble beneath me. A soft, melodic laughter filled the atmosphere, echoing with terrible finality. Rattled, I stumbled toward the door, but it slammed shut with unrelenting force, imprisoning me in that realm of dread. Do you wish to escape? The figure taunted, eyes glimmering with an unnatural light. Or will love lead you to our eternal embrace? Then I felt the temperature plummet even further, a cold so penetrating it made the marrow in my bones ache. I glanced towards the window, half expecting the moonlight to pierce through and banish the darkness, revealing a path to safety. Instead, darkness danced upon the glass, alive, swirling, and transforming. In that moment, I turned just as a chilling gust swept through the room, snatching the letters from the table and tossing them into swirling chaos. The words twisted and spiraled, coiling around my ankles like serpents. Panic surged as I realized they weren't just letters, they were alive and hungry, ready to claim me as their own. With a final cry of desperate defiance, I hurled myself toward the back door, only to find it sealed shut, the wood pulsing like a heart. I felt the shadows creeping closer, embracing me like a suffocating shroud, and I had just enough presence of mind to gasp, "What do you want?" But their response was an echo of my own scream, reverberating through the walls and floor like a bad omen, a sound that promised destruction and eternal entrapment. The shadows engulfed me completely as the last flicker of light faded, an unyielding darkness swallowing the air and hope alike, and then, a voice, familiar and haunting, emerged from the abyss, whispering my name with chilling tenderness. "I want you to love me back." At that moment, the floor buckled, the walls closed in, and I was pulled into the void as everything around me shattered into a million piercing shards. As I descended into the bowels of that cursed realm, I felt the weight of despair, but mingled with that was something much darker, an insatiable hunger for the very love that had sentenced me to this fate. The last thing I heard was a cacophony of agonized wails, each crying, shrieking, and begging for release. Would my voice join them? Or would I succumb to the sweet, deadly call of love that had cursed me from the very beginning? I realized I had yet to confront the real horror. Because as the stark silence settled again, my soul teetered on the brink of darkness, I felt something grip my wrist, warm, familiar, and possessive. "Let's never part again." The warmth radiating from the grip around my wrist was far too vibrant, contrasting sharply with the chilling despair that filled the void. It was as if I were being dragged back to a dreadful comfort, the very thing I had come to fear. Tremors coursed through my body, a mix of fear and longing flooding my senses as I twisted in the darkness to confront my captor. Who are you?" I stammered, heart hammering in my chest. The moment I uttered the words, the grip tightened, pulling me closer to the warmth that seemed to seep into my very core, a tantalizing cure for the unbearable cold that surrounded me. "Who I am does not matter," the voice answered, soft and smooth as velvet, rippling through the darkness like a soothing balm on a festering wound. "It is who you will become that truly counts." What did that mean? My heart thudded so loudly it drowned out the whispers of the surrounding shadows, which coiled around me like eager tendrils. The flickering shadows began to shift, forming shapes that writhed and twisted, taking on familiar faces. Friends, family, familiar loves all contorted into grotesque masks of despair, their eyes hollow, their mouths open in silent screams. "Stop!" I shouted, trying to wrench free from the grip. But it only tightened further, my pulse sinking with whatever ancient heart beat behind the darkness. "Please! I don't want this." "Then why did you call to me?" The voice echoed like a sinister lullaby, reverberating off the swirling darkness. "Did you not yearn for love, for acceptance? This love. I can gift it to you, but at a cost. That cost is captivity." I protested, yet beneath my defiance lay a thrum of temptation. I could feel the pull, the enchantment woven into the words. The letters that had beckoned me before now sang a siren song, each syllable dripping with a promise too tantalizing to dismiss. The shadows constricted, blurring, and then reshaping themselves into a pulsating darkness that began to form a doorway before me. I hesitated, wavering on the edge of an abyss, caught between my fear and the magnetic pull of familiarity. Was this an escape or a descent deeper into the horrors? "Step through, and all you have ever desired will be yours," the voice whispered, the inflection teasing and tantalizing. "Love is but a choice, and I am here to grant you the power to change your fate." The darkness shifted again, revealing fleeting glimpses of joyous moments, laughter, love letters, shared embraces, all the experiences I had craved. But along with the glimmers of joy came a more grotesque shadow, faces twisted in anguish, lovers torn apart, forgotten dreams cloaked in sorrow. I could feel the balance of goodness and malevolence, each moment in my life rendered fragile by that singular choice of love. "Do you not see?" The voice pressed, inquisitive and probing. "The beauty lies within both paths, the path you walk and the path you forsake. All I ask is for your will to embrace what it truly means to love. To surrender yourself completely, for eternity." I could feel the doorway beckoning me closer, its dark threshold pulsating, alive with expectation. My mind whirled as I fought against the seductive song of the shadows. Could I truly give myself more than I ever had? A part of me screamed for escape while the other ached for the embrace of something beyond understanding. "I don't want to," I yelled, the edges of my voice breaking against the pressure of the encroaching gloom. I refused to be another lost soul. The grip around my wrist suddenly slackened, but it was not a reprieve. In that fleeting moment, the warmth dissipated, and I was enveloped by an icy sting. Something darker, something laced with bitterness coiled around my thoughts, whispering betrayals I dared not voice. "Is that so?" The voice replied, now a mere labyrinth of echoes swirling through my own consciousness. "Very well. Then perhaps you will become the next soul to wander this place, to become part of the longing to steal the loves of others so as to fill the void within yourself." I looked around wildly, but the dark doorway was shifting again. The figures of my loved ones morphing into distorted silhouettes, their faces melting into a canvas of terror. I felt my sanity slip like sand through an hourglass as the voices rose, roaring and screaming, merging into a single thundering accusation. "You are not enough." Just then, the letters I had previously abandoned reappeared at my feet, swirling like autumn leaves caught in a tempest, their ink starting to seep through the air, swirling into strange shapes and concocting a new horror. Letters written in blood, every line a treacherous promise. "Embrace what the letters offer," the voice taunted, a twisted smirk woven into its tone. "Accept the darkness, and you shall know love. Resist, and it will gladly claim you, willingly and with no remorse." Suddenly, an unearthly wind swept through the space, howling with a mournful cry, sending shivers through my spine. I looked back to the swirling letter forms, their meaning twisting and crashing into my mind like a tide drawn by the moon. A deafening crash echoed through the room, rebounding off the walls as something in the void began to shift violently, and for a heartbeat, I thought I saw it, a figure looming in the shadows, something unearthly. Do you flee from love, or do you embrace the darkness? It echoed, mocking the very essence of who I was. Fingers of darkness curled around my throat, or did they? Perhaps it was a mere illusion, perhaps I was lost in a malignant dream. But one thing remained clear, an answer loomed in the insatiable void, inexorable and persistent, demanding a choice. My heartbeat quickened as dread settled over me like a heavy cloak. When I finally met the figure's eyes, something stirred within, a shadow of recognition, or perhaps a glimpse of love. The boundaries of dread and desire blurred as I stood at the precipice of an unimaginable fate, the echoes of anguish rising to a crescendo, as the very fabric of reality stretched to its limits, and then, from somewhere deep within the void, a voice tore through the depths of darkness, sharp and piercing, "Make your choice or forever be consumed." I felt every strand of fear clotting my throat as the abyss loomed closer, ready to swallow me whole. The shadows around me pulsed, their inky tendrils creeping closer, a malevolent tide threatening to drown me. My thoughts raced chaotically, the air around me trembled with a distorted energy, vibrating with an ancient and unhinged anticipation. It was as if the very world itself held its breath, waiting for the next beat in this wicked rhythm of fate. With a surge of desperation, I fought against the grip of despair, my heart hammering a frenzied pace within my chest. "No!" I shouted, pouring every ounce of defiance into the word. But the mere declaration felt feeble and small against the growing darkness that enveloped me. Each echo of my protest only served to agitate the lurking horrors that filled the space. "Flee, and there will be no refuge," the voice sang, a haunting melody intertwining with the shadows swirling beyond the doorway. The very atmosphere felt thick and dense, pressing against me like an oppressive weight, choking the breath from my lungs. "Stay, and you may finally feel what you've lost, what you denied yourself." I peered into the rippling darkness, my breath hitching in my throat as a figure flickered within. It was my younger self, smiling with innocence, oblivious to the anguish that would come to erode every sense of joy. A longing, raw and unbearable, gnawed at my chest. The memories cascaded like a torrential storm, laughter echoing through hallways, true connections, love unblemished by betrayal. But those moments were marred by visions of loss, shadows stretching across all I had once cherished. In that instantaneous moment, the edges of my reality split, revealing a multitude of paths branching off into the dark. Each path was painted with the echoes of what might have been, every step resonating with the voices of anguished loved ones, pleading and accusing in a symphony of sorrow. "Choose." The shadowy figure beckoned, extending a ghostly hand toward me. Its fingers seemed to ripple with energy, vibrating with sinister encouragement. I could not tell if I should embrace it or flee into the endless void. The howls around me grew louder, echoing the despairing cries of those who had loved but lost. I felt my own voice lost within the cacophony, each scream weaving into the fabric of agony that surrounded me. "You don't have to be alone," whispered the shadows, charming yet chilling, as they slithered nearer, making promises only darkness could orchestrate. "You can bring them back. You can have more." "More?" I echoed, my mind racing. The notion swirled like a tempest, blurring the lines of sanity and wrapping me in silk threads of delusion. Each syllable shredded through my resolve the tantalizing promise of all I had once craved, all that had been taken from me. Did I dare hope that I could reclaim it all? In the depths of my heart, amidst the swirling torment, something stirred, not a desire for darkness but a desperation to be free from the shackles of eternal longing. "I refuse to give in," screamed the rebellious ember igniting within. In that instant, the shadows roared in displeasure, their faces contorting into terrifying visages, memories flickering within their depths. "You think you can escape what is fated?" they howled, their voices peeling back layers of tranquility. "You belong here, in this realm where love and dread mingle. You have always belonged to us." With terror tightening its grip around my heart, I dashed forward, thrusting my body through the threshold of the doorway, feeling the sharp chill of the other side slice against my skin. I landed in a new realm where the echoes of the past transformed into a cacophony that enveloped me. It was an infinite expanse filled with shimmering possibilities tainted by the shadows of my choices. The scene around me shifted, revealing a dilapidated theater, dust motes shimmering in the air like forgotten wishes. On stage, the past played out every moment I had intricately crafted: interactions, conversations, laughter. Each flickering frame seeped into my mind like poison, casting elongated illusions of happiness and fear, but amidst it all stood a figure cloaked in shadows, its features undefined but its presence unmistakable. The air grew colder, a bitter chill whispering through the empty seats of the theater as it shifted closer, revealing a face void of identity, all-consuming and magnificent. "Welcome," it intoned, each word ringing with ancient power. "You wished for love, did you not? Unlike the musty memories swirling around you, I am the essence of what remains unspoken. I can offer you what you seek and more." My breath caught in my throat as shivers ran down my spine, uncertainty coiling tightly around my heart. "What more?" I whispered, unable to resist the gravity of curiosity, the haunting melody of hope intertwined with dread. "Everything you could ever desire," the figure replied, the darkness around it growing thicker, pulsating with a life of its own. "But the price is high. The barrier between realms is a fleeting thing, easily disturbed, and you are standing upon the precipice of ultimate sacrifice." A ripple of horror coursed through me. It was a cruel twist of fate, the glimmer of love shadowed by imminent despair. "I won't give in. I won't let myself become another lost soul," I declared, though doubt wormed its way into my heart, creeping with the certainty of shadowy inevitability. The entity shifted forward, eyes glowing with an eerie light. "Then embrace the darkness, and take your place among those who have known love. Only by surrendering can you truly become free." Sudden silence consumed the air, and reality wavered, the boundaries of my fate stretching thin. In a heartbeat, I could feel the void beneath me shifting, and dread wrapped around my throat like an unyielding noose. "Or perhaps," it continued, the malice thickening, "you would prefer to witness the consequences of your refusal." And in that moment, the theater erupted with anguish, the very fabric of the scene tearing apart. I could feel it, the weight of every loved one who had been taken, summoned by the dread of my choice, all languishing in torment, and my name rose from the depths, echoing through the infinite darkness. My heart pounded as I stood frozen, caught in this realm of despair, between love and sacrifice, knowing I would have to choose before it was too late. As I turned to escape back the way I had come, the figure's chilling laughter echoed. "Choose wisely, for the shadows are hungry, and they won't wait forever." The shadows in the theater twisted, contorting and stretching like grotesque marionettes, their cries mingling with an incessant whisper that seeped into my very soul. I felt the weight of the eyes upon me, hundreds of them, watching with a mix of anguish and longing as they clawed at the shreds of hope I clung to. Each beat of my heart summoned a memory into focus, vivid yet tainted by despair, each face a reminder of the love I had lost, the warmth that had once enveloped me now extinguished in frost. "You cannot escape what was taken from you. They know you're here," the shadowy figure cooed, its tone both seductive and sinister. "If you refuse, there will be a reckoning, something unlike anything you've ever experienced." Suddenly, the ground beneath me began to tremble. I stumbled as a cracking sound echoed through the air, the very foundation of the theater shuddering in response to the entity's threat. The walls wept shadows that writhed like living things, creeping closer as the temperature dropped to an unbearable chill. No. I gasped, seizing an ounce of determination left within me. "I won't be your pawn," but with the declaration, the figure laughed, a sound both hollow and taunting. "Ah, but my dear, it is too late for defiance. You'll soon learn just how ineffectual your spirit truly is." I turned, desperate to escape the crushing grasp of despair, and sprinted towards the nearest exit. The empty seats rose like towering sentinels, their darkness pulsating, a snaking road of shadow that twisted and coiled around me. The whispers intensified, their urgent tones pulling at my consciousness, each syllable gnashing like teeth. Did they belong to those who I had wronged? Those I had loved but lost? My mother's voice pleaded in the recesses of my mind, mingling with my father's stoic silence, crumbling into echoes of past laughter, memories drowning in a tide of guilt and regret. I dashed toward a set of heavy curtains at the back of the stage, the fabric hanging like curtains in a mausoleum. The shadows writhed at my heels, clawing and pulling at my coat. I felt too slow, weighed down, as if the very air thickened with despair and the heat of my racing heart. As I gripped the edge of the curtains, I hesitated for a moment, glancing over my shoulder at the dance of shadows behind me. They twisted and lunged, faces melding into grotesque visages of my past, every one of them a reminder of a choice, a moment I wished I could change. "You'll only leave if you accept the price," the figure whispered, a smooth melody mingling with the chaos around me. "One beloved will remain shackled in this realm, destined to suffer for your refusal. They will be forever lost until you choose to join them." My breath caught in my throat, a cold dread wrapping around my heart. Images of my sister flickered in my mind, the vibrant girl with boundless dreams, the one who had looked up to me with trust in her eyes. I had sworn to protect her, and yet I had failed. "I can't let her suffer," I whispered, trembling under the weight of the impossible choice. "I won't let that happen." The shadows began closing in, the gripping edges of their darkness threatening to envelop me. I was standing between my own salvation and the devastation of losing another. The haunting laughter of the figure became a chorus of agony, as if it thrived on my torment, feeding on every flicker of hope I still possessed. "Choose the path that might save her, but know this, true love is a flame that can burn," grasping at the light of those left in the darkness, it crooned, voice dripping with mockery. "Will you extinguish that flame to save your own skin?" In that very moment, a piercing scream shattered the flickering shadows, reverberating through my bones. I turned, disbelief washing over me as reality warped around me. The sound was familiar, agonizingly so, echoing with an ancient sorrow. "Not again," I gasped, stepping back as horrified recognition gripped my heart. It was her voice, my sister, calling out to me through the entangled threads of despair and darkness, "Help me!" She cried again, a tormented wail resonating in the deep recesses of my soul. "Please, don't leave me. Come back." Every nerve in my body ignited with terror, and I grasped the curtain tighter, my mind ablaze with indecision. The shadows shuddered as I felt her presence, clawing at the edges of my consciousness, seeking to pull me into the void where nightmares danced and dreams shattered. No. I screamed into the chaos, tears spilling down my cheeks, as I felt the very fabric of my being unraveling, teetering on the brink of unimaginable choices. With a surge of adrenaline, I tore through the curtains, chasing the echoes of her voice deeper into the darkness. But the shadows surged forward, thickening into a wall, dragging me back into the blackened depths, where the figure loomed, waiting with that insidious grin. "You cannot run from your fate," it hissed, ever so nonchalant, as the world crumbled around us. "And soon, you will learn the true meaning of sacrifice." The ground beneath me heaved violently, blinding flashes of light spilling through fractures in my reality as I felt the grip of the shadows tighten around my throat. Just as I was about to scream, just as I thought I'd be engulfed within the endless darkness, a deafening crack echoed. The stage itself split wide open, and in that moment, a vortex of tortured souls erupted, howling for release, fingers brushing against my skin, feeling like both salvation and doom. "Choose now." The figure shouted over the chaos, as the void threatened to swallow me whole. And in the shard of darkness, I saw her, my sister, her eyes wide with terror, pulling me with every ounce of her being. Time froze as I faced the unfathomable abyss of choices, teetering between love and sacrifice, knowing that whatever path I took would lead to unimaginable consequences. In a heartbeat, I had to decide, but the shadows whispered around me, cackling with hunger, the weight of eternity bearing down, leaving me gasping for breath. "Choose," they echoed, voices swirling into a vortex of dread. "Choose before it's too late." The howl of the vortex echoed relentlessly in my ears, merging with the cacophony of anguished souls, creating a symphony of torment that threatened to pull me apart. I could see her face through the writhing shadows, every moment one more painful than the last. "Please, don't go," my sister cried. Her voice, laced with desperation, sliced through the chaos, grounding me in a moment of chilling clarity. Her outline flickered like a dying flame amid the thick, oppressive darkness. Time stretched painfully as I fought against the rising tide of anguish that pulled at my resolve. What do I do? I gasped, the shadows' laughter turning into a monstrous roar surrounding me. They danced with glee at my hesitation, anticipating the moment of my undoing. The sinister figure grinned wider, feeding upon my torment. You know the price, it rasped, its voice laced with cruel delight. Only one of you will leave this realm. Either you abandon her to the darkness or you join her, to be forever shackled in this wicked play. Panic clawed at my mind as realizations erupted like fireworks. To let her go was to betray her love, a dagger plunging into my heart wrapped in despair and regret. But joining her would mean sealing my own fate in the realm of nightmares. The very existence I fought to escape was looming ever closer. Make your choice. Taunted the figure, an ancient evil weaving its dark promises among the shadows that flickered and writhed like venomous snakes. The eyes of the tortured soul surrounded me, regret meeting anguish, anger merging with longing, all feeding a cycle of relentless despair. That I began to take a trembling step toward her, my heart racing, weighing the suffocating silence that curled around my throat, mixing with the memories of our childhood laughter. The comforts of our shared memories surged through me, grasping desperately for hope, yet shadowed by the knowledge that any decision might shatter our bond forever. Just come back. Just reach for me. She cried again, more urgent, and as I stepped further, the shadows warped and thickened, blocking the path, swarming closer. They shrieked and clawed, pulling at my very being, trying to anchor me in despair. Each second stretched on, a torment I could scarcely endure. In the tumult of madness, I glanced back at the figure, its eyes glittering with malevolent glee. I felt it, the weight of inevitability tightening around my chest. I was caught, lost in a web of sorrow and choices, one moment away from irrevocable loss. That I shut my eyes, grounding myself, and opened my heart to the truth of my love, the loyalty that intended to burn bright, which could not be extinguished. I choose. I shouted, voice rising above the chaos, words tearing from my throat like a storm of raw emotion. I will not abandon her. In that instant, the world twisted violently, the fabric of reality stretching and tearing around me as explosions of dark energy erupted, and a vortex spiraled outward, preying on my defiance. I felt my sister's presence explosive and shattering, the love between us coiling like a rope around my soul, entwining me into the very core of the darkness that threatened to consume us both. No. The figure shrieked, as if my choice had unleashed a flood of ancient retribution. The shadows recoiled and shrank back, swirling chaotically in response to my defiance, releasing anguished cries in unison. Yet the shadows didn't retreat entirely. Instead, they merged into a colossal mouth, woven through the remnants of my sister's fading form. Don't leave me. Stay with me. Her voice melted into an anguished howl alongside the souls around us, pleading and mournful. I reached out, desperation vibrating through each fiber of my being. The shadows surged again, wrapping around me with newfound ferocity. Suddenly, the stage shattered, and with it, reality tore asunder, unveiling an abyss filled with twisted lamentations and fraying hopes. Hurtling through the collapsing universe, I felt truth and nightmare merging into one cacophonous chaos. Through the debacle, I glimpsed visions of my sister reaching desperately from one end of the void, her face transitioning from hope to despair within fractions of a heartbeat. My heart recoiled at the sight of her agony, unyielding guilt gnawing at my core. Please help me. And then the vortex erupted into a blinding light, ripping me from the tendrils of darkness, as I teetered in limbo, suspended between worlds. Just when I thought I could reach for her, to pull her back to me, the dark mouth expanded, swallowing her desperate cries, sealing her fate in the shadows of despair. I gasped, reality heaving as the overwhelming gravity of choices bore down on me. The figure's laughter writhed in a chilling echo. You may have chosen love, dear one, but now you face the eternal price. With that, the shadows howled in triumph, the theater around me morphing, transforming into a twisted labyrinth where every echo whispered my name, taunting and mocking. I was alone again, fleeting echoes of my sister's cries growing fainter, stretching into nothingness, rebounding against the walls of an ever-darkening world. Staggering back, I realized the truth: the shadows had not merely taken my sister, they had woven me into their eternal tapestry, sealing my own fate in the very darkness I had sought to escape. And as I stood there, raw with terror, the world around me shifted again. A single, jagged shadow began to coalesce into a form one I had never wished to see. In that moment, I recognized the reflection staring back at me from the depths of despair, the face a twisted mirror of my own lost visage. And the shadows whispered of my new reality. There was no escape from the cursed love, no turning back. I simply had to embrace the horrors that awaited me. As they coiled into a new form, the figure bearing my sister's face, "Welcome home," she crooned, a sinister gleam in her eyes, reaching out as the shadows encircled me once more, pulling me into the very heart of fear itself, where love and horror intertwined. And just as everything faded to black, I realized my terrifying new role in this wretched play had only just begun. The darkness pressed in from all sides, thick and suffocating, wrapping around me like a shroud. I felt the chill seeping into my bones as the reminder of her face, twisted and cruel, flickered before my eyes. "Welcome home," she had said, her smile wide but devoid of warmth. It was the smile of someone who had traversed the abyss alongside me, and found their own darkness thriving under its cloak. That I stumbled back, my heart hammering in my chest, a primal urge to flee burning in my veins. But as I turned, the labyrinth shifted around me, the walls morphing into a grotesque mockery of familiar spaces: the hallway of my childhood home, the kitchen where we used to bake cookies, each corner festooned with laughter now shadowed with despair. "Where are you?" I whispered, though I already knew the answer. I was here, encased in a prison of my regrets and fears. Each step I took echoed with the whispers of 1,000 lost souls, their sighs mingling with the haunting laughter of the figure who wore my sister's face. It came in waves, overwhelming in its persistency. Help me, the voices warped around me, slithering into my ears. Fear coiled tighter in my gut as I pressed onward, the landscape shifting with every beat of my racing heart. A door materialized before me, warped and splintered yet inviting. I inhaled sharply, the air thick with the stench of decay, bracing myself as I reached out to turn the handle. But as I twisted it, a scalding heat surged back, forcing me to stumble back as the door disintegrated into swirling smoke. "What do you want from me?" I screamed into the void, my voice swallowed by the darkness that pulsed all around. The shadows responded with a chorus of laughter, deep and mocking. "You wished to save her," they jeered, "and now you must pay the price for that defiance." In an instant, shapes began to emerge from the inky blackness, each one a wretched version of those I once loved, their faces grotesque and twisted. They clawed and writhed, reaching for me with desperate hands, mouths gasping and sputtering her name. The confrontation froze the blood in my veins, my breath quickening as I recognized them. Everyone I thought I had lost, now part of this hell, tormenting me with their pain. "Every choice feeds the shadows," a voice whispered from somewhere deep within the cacophony. "You thought to preserve love, but love is what brought you here." "Stop," I pleaded, backing away until I hit a wall, its surface cold and slick against my skin. "You're not my family. You can't be." I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to wake up from this nightmare, hoping against hope, but the laughter swirled around me, an unrelenting tempest of agony. "We are all that is left of your precious bonds, dear one. Every sacrifice you make births new horrors, and something dear is always lost." Something snapped inside me, all the pain, every ounce of regret, and the gnawing guilt of my previous choice ignited into a furious blaze. "Let them go," I screamed, and in that moment of defiance, I felt an icy wrath surge forth, felt it claw its way out as I conjured the remnants of love I possessed. The ground beneath me trembled, and the faces of my loved ones blurred, becoming lenses for their sorrow. "No!" I roared, lashing out with every ounce of will I could muster. "You will not hold their souls." The air crackled with energy as the shadows twisted, recoiling from the surge of my emotions. A sudden flash of blinding light erupted, temporarily banishing the darkness that had surrounded me, leaving only the mournful remnants of faces now charred and worn. But before the light could warm my heart, it flickered, growing dimmer in a heartbeat, revealing a deeper darkness coiling behind it. In its aftermath, a figure emerged, shrouded in obsidian smoke, its form shifting like liquid night. I knew instantly it was the malevolent force that had orchestrated this twisted play. "It appears you still have fight left in you," it hissed, its voice reverberating through my bones. "But this is not a game you control. I will fashion each attempt into an exquisite tragedy, and your beloved sister shall take her rightful place among the ghouls." With a wave of its hand, the shadows thickened and surged forward, solidifying into chains that wrapped around me, freezing me in place. "Let her go!" I screamed again, but my voice drowned in the clamor around me, discordant and chilling. As the darkness constricted, the dread flooded every inch of my being, but it wasn't just despair that filled my heart, it was rage, an insatiable fire that ignited within as I recalled the memories of my sister's laughter, of her warmth and love that had once graced my life. It culminated in an explosive surge, an arrow of pure light piercing the gloom, pushing back the shadows momentarily, but the respite was short-lived. Emerging from the depths, I saw her face once more, now masked by the darkness, but her eyes glimmering with hope. "Fight! Please, don't give in," she pleaded, the apparition flickering as chains locked tighter around me, her form wavering like smoke. Before I could answer, the shadows began to dissipate, leaving whispers of despair swirling around us. "She will be lost if you continue to resist," the figure growled, pulling back the veil of shadows altogether, revealing the true horror of my sister's fate. Its clawed fingers curled around the flickering light of her essence, tugging her back into the depths of darkness. "You've lost that which was precious. Embrace your shame," and in that moment, I felt it, the weight of 1,000 failures pressing upon me, the unbearable grief of all I had already lost. My sister's cries echoed in my ears, a wild harmony of hope and despair, echoing endlessly through the labyrinth of my guilt. As she too began to fade into the encroaching shadows, I screamed her name, the battlefield of darkness shattering around me, leaving only one piercing thought: the curse was deeper than love. I was now a prisoner of the very shadows I had unleashed. Just as one last flicker of brightness surged forth, briefly illuminating the expanse of gloom, the shadows clawed back, a final shudder echoing as the walls of the labyrinth crumbled. I felt myself being pulled apart, body and soul torn between desperate yearning and encroaching despair. No. I howled, clinging to the fleeting light of her essence, both terrified and resolute, teetering on the brink of total darkness. But as the last shred of hope flickered before me, I was engulfed in the very shadows I had sought to combat. The darkness surged, swallowing my sister's cries, melting into the depths, and it whispered to me, a chilling promise echoing into infinity. "You thought escape was what you desired, yet you have only just begun to discover what true despair looks like." And with that, I sunk into an abyss that was not simply void but alive, a climax of ghastly echoes revealing the unimaginable. I was not merely fighting for her life, I was fighting for my own soul, and the game was only beginning. The world dimmed, the edges of my vision fraying as the shadows enveloped me in their suffocating embrace. No longer could I distinguish between the past and the present, between the whispers of my own despair and the echoing agony that curled around me like a funeral shroud. Every heartbeat pounded against my skull like a drum, each pulse resonating with the darkness that now claimed me. I drifted deeper, each sensation becoming dulled, smothered beneath the relentless tide of despair. It felt as if I was submerged in ink, the blackness wrapping tightly around me, numbing my very essence until all that remained was a hollow shell sobbing for a sliver of light. I tried to call out again, the desperate cry clawing its way through the void, but the abyss swallowed my words whole, shattering my resolve into a constellation of fearsome whispers. Then, a soft glow materialized in the distance, flickering like a fragile heartbeat against the crushing darkness. Hope surged within me, igniting the familiar warmth that had almost faded from memory. I pushed forward, each step a struggle against the gnawing chains that clung to my ankles, dragging me back into the oppressive silence. Was it her? I prayed that she remained unscathed, that she too could find her way back to me. The light grew brighter, becoming a beacon that cut through the surrounding shadows, illuminating the path ahead. Desperation laced with fragile hope tinged my movements as I stepped toward it, the air thickening with anticipation. As I neared, I realized the glow was not singular, it pulsed rhythmically, enveloping the once familiar figures around it, the faces of my family, twisted and distorted, hovering in a shimmering orbit of terror. "Join us," they beckoned in unison, voices dripping with a syrupy sweetness that was undercut by a chilling edge. Their arms, extended and eager, trembled as if the very act of reaching out threatened their existence. "What happened to you?" I cried, dread coiling within, constricting tighter with each word. I took a hesitant step back, every instinct urging me to flee from their outstretched fingers that glimmered with lost promise. "Help us," they murmured, their voices now transitioning into a sinister chorus, weaving through my mind with insidious intent. "Just a little closer. Give in, and we can experience the fullness of love again." That I shook my head violently, tears blurring my vision as the shadows around them pulsed, ravenous for my surrender. "No. You're not my family. You're just illusions, phantoms of my grief." With that, the entire room began to quiver, a low groan emanating from the depths of the retreating shadows that seemed to boil with growing fury. "Defiance comes at a cost," the figure of obsidian smoke roared, echoing through the swirling darkness as it materialized before me, every fluid movement oozing malice. Its lidless eyes glimmered with a malignant satisfaction. "You think your resistance can save you? How quaint!" The room trembled violently as the walls began to constrain, squeezing tightly around my body. The faces of my loved ones contorted in agony, their features warping into a grotesque tableau of torment. "Help us, please," they pleaded once more, voices layered and overlapping, flooding my mind with the cacophony of desperate cries. A blinding flash of realization crashed over me, igniting the embers of my anger into a blazing inferno. They were not lost, they were trapped, feeding into the darkness that longed to devour me whole, their essence tethered to this cursed wretchedness. "I will find you," I screamed, determination surging through the marrow of my bones. "I will break this curse." The horrors around me roared in protest, the shadows writhing and lashing out as I surged forward, channeling my grief and rage into a single commanding thought: I must save them. Clenching my fists, I summoned every shard of memory that tethered me to their love, the bitter sweetness of laughter echoing in my ears, a solemn reminder of our shared bond. With every ounce of will, I conjured the flicker of warmth deep within me, radiating it outward, a violent beacon that exploded into the oppressive shadows. For a brief moment, the phantasms of my family illuminated the darkness, revealing glimpses of their true selves beneath the pain. The joy that once painted their smiles blazed fiercely. "Please. Fight it." My sister's voice penetrated the veil, stronger than it had ever been, urging me onward with undeniable power. But the darkness recoiled, furious tendrils snatching at the light, hungry to extinguish this hopeful blaze. "You will regret this defiance." The malevolent fog hissed, the very ground quaking beneath us, as it summoned forth a new horror. From the depths of the gloom arose a swirling cascade of forms that twisted and writhed in the clutches of despair. The faces morphed into grotesque parodies of familiarity, their mouths agape in anguished, soundless screams. They clawed at me, at my family, their wretched fingertips trailing soot and shadow, searching for something to grasp onto, to steal away. Suddenly, the air thickened, crackling as if alive with electric malice, and a new wave surged through the darkness, pushing against me like 1,000 knives. The shadows condensed, and with them, vivid memories redefined forgotten traumas playing out in a cruel tapestry of agony and heartache that bent and twisted reality. Then a single voice cut through the chaotic torment, resonant and filled with unearthly rage. The obsidian figure loomed larger, undulating and transforming in a whirl of malefic shadows. "Stay with us, become one with the shadows, or suffer the price of your defiance." In that moment, the very ground quaked as I stood at a yawning precipice. If I let go, if I accepted the darkness, it would claim everything, yet resisting felt like inviting another inevitable loss. Faced with this choice, I fought the instinct to cower. Each breath became laborious, the air crackling and stinging my lungs. I locked eyes with what I believed was my sister, imagining her brave smile urging me forward even in this hell. But just as I let instinct drive me and surged toward the suffering faces, desperate to grasp onto the light, the shadows surged with brutal ferocity, wrapping around me once more. "No!" I gasped as a cold grip encircled my heart, and then, in an instant, the abyss split open beneath me, pulling me down into a deeper darkness, one I had never dared to imagine existed. "No! I won't let you take me!" I screamed as I fell, the anguished cries of my family rising in a haunting crescendo above me, and then, nothing but silence, as the void consumed my screams. As I hovered in the abyss, nothingness swallowing my cries whole, I felt a flicker of return creeping into my consciousness. Time had become a disjointed landscape, looping endlessly as memories ignited like flares before extinguishing in an icy breath. For a moment, all sensation vanished, and I found myself afloat, suspended in a world unbound by the laws of reality. Then came a cool whisper of air, brushing against my skin. And with it, a jarring jolt transported me to a room, dimly lit by a flickering bulb, revealing disarray, furniture overturned, and fragments of shattered lives littered across the floor. I was there, but the memories felt like thin sheets of ice, ready to crack under my weight. I stumbled forward, seeking answers, but instead, encountered a strange pulse thrumming through the floor beneath me, an unsettling heartbeat that synced with my own. Each beat throbbed, echoing the suffocated cries I had shouted into the void. My heart raced, urgency coursing through me as I stepped deeper into the chaos, feeling the air thicken with despair. "Is anyone there?" My voice trembled, barely rising above the pulsating thrum. With each passing moment, the oppressive energy wrapped tighter around me, stifling my breath. Shadows danced along the walls, flickering like the remnants of something or someone long lost. And then a sibilant whisper, a breath of a voice, not unlike my sister's, drifted through the room. It wrapped around my senses, teasing my will to believe. "Come back to us," the chant reverberated within my mind, resonating with a fear so profound, it coiled around my heart, squeezing until I gasped. Torn between longing and dread, I pressed on, my feet guided by the unknown force urging me deeper into this waking nightmare. Moans seemed to bubble up from the floor itself, a tapestry of sorrow intertwining the very air I breathed. I stumbled into what looked like a dilapidated living room, one that mirrored my own, an uncanny reimagining of that which had once felt safe. Suddenly, the beat intensified, transforming into a rhythm that was familiar and yet foreign, one that knocked violently, echoing through my bones. At its tempestuous crescendo, I found myself before a cracked mirror, its surface rippling like a disturbed pond. My reflection stared back with haunted eyes, a veritable ghost replete with lines of sorrow etched in a manner that didn't feel like my own. The glass, distorted scenes played like snapshots of a life that spiraled beyond my grasp. I watched in horror as my family appeared, faces contorted in fear as they reached out through that mist of shadow that enveloped us all. Their eyes, once vibrant, now glistened with a dull, lifeless sheen, imprisoned in fragmented memories as they screamed silent pleas. Terror coiled within, wrapping around my sense of self. "No," I rasped, the sound echoing back at me, "I will not be a part of this." I slammed my fist against the mirror, shards clattering to the floor like 1,000 fallen dream shards that glittered ominously, beckoning me closer, a siren's call laced with malice. But then I noticed something beneath the droplets of darkened glass. A piece of paper lay, strewn carelessly across the ground, the words etched in a frantic, spidery script. Getting closer, I recognized it to be the handwriting of my sister, a letter, the last she had tried to send before it had all unraveled. "Help me find the letters." The words were almost illegible, fading into the glass, but their urgency cut through the fog of confusion. "The curse begins where love binds and binds where love ends. Search for truth. They watch. They will come. Do not trust the shadows." Panic churned within me, quickening the heartbeat that synced with the pulse of this strange world. My breath caught, hearing whispers of warmth turning sour with their treachery. Time slipped through my fingers as I felt the ground tremble beneath me again, more insistently now, like a beast stirring from slumber. Then, in a flash of movement, the shadows once again twisted, flowing toward me with alarming speed. Faces emerged from the vortex of darkness, me family, but not as I remembered them. Their bodies were warped, their eyes blackened pits of despair, mouths twisted into horrid grins, and they crawled, whispering incoherently through the murky air. "Join us, find us, save us." The walls around me began to close in, the weight of their collective agony crashing down like a tidal wave. You must decide. The ripple of that obsidian figure coiled back into view, sneering with sadistic glee. Do you save them, or do you save yourself? Time froze as I grappled with the impossible choice, my sister's letter shuffling through my thoughts like fallen leaves in a storm. The pulse intensified once more, shaking the walls of this horrid place. Emerge into darkness or embrace the light of your own despair. It taunted. I raised my head defiantly, clinging to the last vestiges of my love. But the shadows intensified, slithering closer, ready to envelop my resolve, ready to pull my loved ones into the forever depths of despair. Just as despair threatened to suffocate me, a figure erupted from the shadows, barely distinguishable but familiar, a silhouette draped in darkness, eyes blazing with furious intensity. Listen to me. But before I could react, the figure lunged toward me, and I felt a grip on my wrist, a pull toward the chasm where my loved ones remained trapped between hope and nothingness. I was torn, heart racing, breath stilled, as I faced this overwhelming horror, and then the figure whispered, "This is only the beginning," and just like that, blinding darkness clawed at my vision, whisking everything away until all that remained was one haunting question echoing in the void: could I truly end the curse, or was I destined to become a wretched shadow of my former self? I awoke, gasping, shivering in a cold sweat. The shadows had receded, leaving me in the remnants of a fractured dream world. My surroundings held an uncanny familiarity, the walls dimmed and crumbling as if reality itself were fraying at the edges. The sharp echo of dread lingered in my ears, faint cries melting into the rushing silence of my mind. As the haze of despair fogged my thoughts, I stumbled forward, driven by desperation. The horrific images from the mirror flashed in my memory, my family with their twisted faces, my sister's eerie smile that promised neither safety nor escape. I had to fight the grip of the shadows tightening around them, spiraling deeper into the trail of truth that had haunted me since unearthing those cursed love letters. Find the letters, her voice echoed in my mind, imprinted with urgency. The curse begins where love binds. I raced through the dim corridors, the air thick with the scent of decay and an insidious whispering that constantly surrounded me. Shadows crept along the floor, curling like mist, seeking the slightest hint of weakness to exploit. But this time, I wouldn't falter. I had seen the truth reflected in that cracked mirror, I knew what I was up against. Then, just ahead, a shimmering light flickered, the alluring glow intensifying against the engulfing dark. Heart pounding, I pressed forward, instinct guiding my feet to the source of that light, and there it lay, a small wooden box, cloaked in dust yet glowing faintly. The air around it pulsed with ominous energy that I hesitated, dread clawing at my chest, but love flickered fiercely in my heart like a wild flame, reminding me of why I had embarked on this twisted journey. There was no choice but to fight, to confront what lay ahead. My fingers trembled as I reached for the box, the wood cold beneath my touch. It creaked open, releasing a cloud of stifling air that felt alive. Inside lay a collection of yellowing letters, bound together with a deep crimson ribbon, the very same love letters that had cursed me. I ripped them free, the ink glistening ominously, each line whispering an unfamiliar name that melded with my memories: Catherine. The name rang through me like a tolling bell. A flood of memories engulfed my senses. It was her, my long-lost love, a relationship marred by tragedy and regret. The letters were not just cursed relics, they were remnants of her pain, cast in ink, her cries for love transformed into shackles that held us both prisoner. As I pored over the words, understanding blossomed like a dark flower blooming in the recesses of my mind. Catherine's resentment, her longing had become entwined with shadows, feeding on love's most profound depths. To love is to be eternally bound, her message whispered. But what of the souls that bleed beneath its weight? Suddenly, a chill enveloped the room, and the shadows surged as if roused by the very name I had unearthed. I felt it, her presence, no longer just a distant memory but encased in the darkness. You were too late, a voice slithered from the void. You broke the curse, and you drew her back. Panic surged through me, yet amidst the fear, something more profound took root: the knowledge that I had unwittingly freed the trapped essence of Catherine into our world once again. With every desperate cry, I felt the weight of her anguish pulsing at my core as shadows began crawling closer, eager to reclaim what they had lost. No. I shouted, my voice reverberating through the suffocating darkness. Not again. I'll save you, but it was a taunt, echoed by the spirits of despair moaning from every corner. Suddenly, Catherine materialized from the dark, her figure beautiful yet ethereal, cloaked in swirling shadows. Her eyes glowed with an unearthly light, vibrant, yet hollow. "Why did you bring me back?" she asked, her voice haunting like a symphony of lost dreams. "You didn't break the curse. You merely became part of it." Each word struck me like a metallic blade, and the shadows laughed, a thunderous echo swirling around us. I could feel them closing in. Thousands of twisted souls writhed, amalgamated, clawing for release, and every gasp of desperation drove me deeper into the void. I stepped backward, racing against the encroaching tide of despair. "I will not lose you again," I screamed, the desperation in my voice rising above the sinister chorus of laughter and cries. "Then join us," the shadows whispered, beckoning me with corrupt promises of unity and understanding. "The shadows know how much it hurts. Make the choice you were always meant to." Catherine flickered at the edge of my vision, tears shimmering in her eyes blackened by layers of sorrow, her presence overshadowed by an unrelenting darkness that awaited my consent. "Stay, or perish together." The shadows jeered, the raucous laughter intensifying. The choice loomed over me heavy and threatening, and within that moment of dread, I saw it, a glimmer of hope veiled by impending darkness. "No, I don't want this," I cried, defiance igniting within as I held the letters close. They pulsed, thrumming with the memory of love twisted by loss. "Love has no price," I screamed, willing the words to pierce through the encroaching gloom. "You will not take my heart." The very air trembled, and for a moment, the shadows shuddered at my resistance. I focused all my love, every memory tangled with pain and longing, channeling it outward like a bright flare of fire against the oppressive void. "Catherine, remember who we are." With a sudden frenzy, the shadows recoiled, writhing against the brilliance igniting from within me as the letters twisted violently in my grasp. They had awakened the truth that love can harness dark power but can also liberate those we cherish from the thrall of despair. "Don't let them bind you," I urged Catherine, whose figure flickered like a candle dragged through wind. I seized that connection, reaching inside for her light, for the love we shared. "Remember," I whispered, desperation carving each letter into my voice. "Remember us," and then the shadows shattered, brittle screams melting into echoes of remembrance. In that cataclysmic embrace of love, I felt the entire realm buckle. Their cries diminished as a radiant surge blasted forth, enveloping Catherine and me, forcing the darkness to divide, to retreat and dissolve like mist meeting the dawn. I and the blinding light, I felt warm arms wrap around me, her presence solidifying, warmth radiating against the chill of the dark remains. And I opened my eyes, both terrified and hopeful, holding Catherine close as we were thrust into the tethered realm of the living, free, yet burdened with the ghosts of our past. But even in our escape, a lingering shadow clung to the edges of our hearts. A whisper of despair remained, learned sorrow intermingled with love's fragile strength, hinting at the price paid to conquer darkness. We had survived, but the curse would loom forever. Love's shadow echoed with the certain knowledge that it would anchor itself like a moth drawn to a flame, and though we turned away from the shadows that had sought to consume us, I felt the sensation creeping through the air, a dark reminder suggesting that even amidst hope, the echoes of lost souls always linger waiting to be reclaimed. As we closed the door on this dark chapter, I saw a flicker in the mirror, my own haunting face staring back with an unsettling promise, for in recognizing my choices lay a deeper darkness, one that would always reach for me in moments of reckoning, reminding me of love's bittersweet caress. "What's left of us?" I whispered to Catherine, but even as tranquility settled, the air thickened with a dread-laden whisper that curled ominously within my mind. "Welcome back to the shadows." What shattered silence fell upon our reunion spoke louder than the words that remained unspoken, echoing our haunting truth, that love is an unbreakable bond forever entwined with joys and horrors. And though the darkness receded in that moment, I could still hear the shadows softly whispering. They were not gone, they merely waited, laying in silent anticipation for the right moment to reclaim what they believed was theirs.